Yes, I see you fallen right into my evil trap. You're gay if you don't watch this video to the very end, and trans as well. I don't make the rules, I just asked a witch to curse the whole audience, and they said, I'll do it. I'll do it for this topic that you're about to discuss. I'll do it for this guy right here. I'll curse your audience with the help of myself and my fellow witches. And I was able to do that because I'm a furry, of course. Hey there, freaks, sickos, and everyone else. Welcome to the podcast. Just so we don't get lost in the lies. And I am calling anyone who says any other narrative, who pushes anything else, a liar. They are liars. Just so we don't get caught up in those lies, Charlie Kirk was a victim of the very same political violence he advocated for. And while Republicans are doing whatever they can to make this about the left, despite the fact that the shooter was a deranged kook, and that's where everyone should leave it, this should be a wake-up call for them instead. For Republicans in particular, but also anyone with any sincerely held belief that this guy was very vocal about, even though he did not do it with any sincerity. And it should be a wake-up call because people are pissed off at Republicans in general, and the death of Charlie Kirk, the death of Charles Entertainment Kirk, did nothing to change that. These are the polls for September 15th, and this is the Trump administration's approval rating for all the issues. He is negative. He is the most negative on the very reason he won 2024 to begin with. And no, I do not believe there was any election meddling in that or 2020, because all elections are audited after the fact. Most states have OSB, which sounds like the program I'm using to record this, OBS, with the letters flipped around. But what that really means is optical scan balloting. Something that Pennsylvania just got. So if there was any meddling in Pennsylvania, what they would have had to do was physically tamper with the counting machines. They would have to physically go in there and change the scanner. It's a simple device with security through obscurity. And they have many safety measures. There's tape and all that stuff. I would know. I was a worker for the 2018 election. Was it 20? No, it was 2022. I was a worker for the 2022 election, the red trickle. And there's even more evidence that it's not good. It's not good for MAGA. It's not good for Trump. It's not good for the president. I don't like the president. I am with most of the country on this. We're starting to reach a point where he is getting less approval than his first term, and it's going to stay there. But what should really alarm Stephen Miller, who's really running the country right now, is this. There's nothing in the demographic crosstabs that's tilting in his favor. You at least need white to sustain any sort of political momentum in America because of the way America is. Because of that woke stuff that y'all seem to really ignore unless your feelings get hurt. But yeah, if you don't have white, you don't have 65 plus, you don't have men, you don't have anything male, if you don't have any of these things that are my dad and this last part, which is your mom, I mean, I checked. That was a really fun night. Uh, then you don't have sustain. You can't keep going. You can't keep up Project 2025. I know the website says it's almost halfway done. This is gonna slow down. And we're already seeing signs of that. So, Chicago, Trump and Miller in particular wanted to invade Chicago like they did with DC, and they just have not been able to do that on the same scale. They just have been doing the random raids, and they're barely meeting the numbers, if that. I don't even believe they're doing that. They did one of the raids on. They attacked my hometown, Savannah, where they build batteries for Hyundai, and the reason they really did that is to help Elon Musk. He probably bribed that into existence. But without the probably, and without any allegedly either. I know he did, and I know what discovery is. Go ahead, give me the papers, I'll toss them in the bin. I am in an anti-SLAPP lawsuit state, which was just placed into effect. So I look forward to making more YouTube videos in Minnesota. And that's going to be a blast, an absolute blast, in a purely metaphorical only sense. Speaking of blast, Charlie Kirk, he's still dead. And with all of these leading indicators, his movement is also dying. Stephen Miller, having any authority over moi or anyone else, is hitting snags. We're starting to see the downfall of MAGA, despite the pearl clutching in the hands and up the ass regarding this guy. I have shed just as many tears for the death of Charles Entertainment Kirk as I had for Kim Jong-il, and will continue to have this many tears shed until my golden years and until I'm dead. I'm going to bring that number with me to my grave. But the reason this should all be a wake-up call for Republicans in particular is because he died of the political violence he advocated for. He was a deranged lunatic that peddled deranged lunacy for clicks and money. And the blood is on YouTube's hands and its logo. They enabled this. This very website enabled this and started pushing this content all the way back in 2015, starting with Gamergate. By the way, Anita Sarkeesian did nothing wrong. She used her free speech, and she had a lot of really valid points, and well, this guy was part of that train. The Daily Wire was part of that crazy train. I cannot stress enough. He died of the very political violence he advocated for. I do not feel sorry for him, and it should be a wake-up call, especially for Republicans, because when you advocate for political violence, things get more dangerous for everyone. Not just the enemy you are painting, not just the people you are making assumptions about or lying about on a routine and regular basis, often knowingly, the average Trump voter has been doing for a while. But eventually, this will catch up with you. None of this is sustainable. What this guy advocated for, certainly not sustainable. And when you routinely call for the death of innocent people, and they are innocent, whether they look brown, or whether they're following the medical advice, whether they're shooting up estrogen or testosterone or whatever, whether they're transgender or cisgender or look exactly like me. We look more similar than I'm comfortable with. Maybe a bit of hair gel, but I'm not Charlie Kirk, and I'm not going to be his replacement. I'm not a guy. I'm not Charlie Kirk faking his death and switching sides. I am me. I have always been me, and I'm a guy who just thinks advocating for political violence is wrong. But you two looked the other way for way too long, and now Charlie Kirk is dead. It would be a disrespect and a disservice to call for even more of it like Republicans have been. To say we should invade spaces and break stuff, go into gay bars, and have not one Stonewall riot, but a lot of them in every state. Sure, that sounds like a good idea. No, that would also be a disrespect to Charlie Kirk, which is why I have the pinned Blue Sky post, yeah, Charlie Kirk died of the very same political violence he advocated for, and it would be a disrespect to him to call for even more of it. No. But YouTube has let their own policies slide for years in a cynical attempt to grab power. But you know what? Your wildest fantasies ain't gonna happen. This progress bar is gonna halt, and you're gonna need to get with a different program. These approval numbers are not going to go up over time, especially if the economy is going to keep tanking like it has because of tariffs that are being done illegally, unconstitutionally, and on a whim. And even if the Supreme Court undoes those tariffs, the damage is already done. And Trump will continue to be the man who bankrupted several casinos in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I could make a casino succeed if I had enough to start one. As long as it started and going and all the rules are being followed, it should be a business that continues indefinitely, no matter what. But Donald Trump, a guy who sits on a golden throne, scare quotes around throne too. Oh yeah, he also he bankrupted a casino. I could set one up and forget it. Basically, it's one of those kinds of businesses. It's sort of like if you're renovating a rundown apartment complex and then charging rent on your mortgage, and then you could just a casino should be that easy, but Donald Trump, the man who casts himself as mighty, powerful, rich, beyond comprehension, has never been that. And now he's just stealing your tax money with Doge and all of those cuts. No, they're going to him. They're not going towards the debt or the deficit or anything like that. It's not to make the federal government more like a business. It's pure kleptocracy. And it's on you, Mr. President and Mr. Miller, to disprove my assertion. And if you can't with free speech, then I'm going to take papers and throw them in the bin and slam the lid very loud within earshot of your whatever attorney you're going to send. And Ellison has my back on that one. It was only a matter of time before Charlie Kirk or someone like him would be the victim of a high-profile shooting, reaping what they sow. When you advocate for political violence, like Charlie Kirk did, it makes things less safe for everyone, including the messenger. And this gives infinitely more credence to the conclusion, backed up by every serious historian, on top of every serious psychologist, that fascism is a suicide cult. It is an ideology that has the exact same logic as a mass shooter, a school shooter, that then turns the gun back on themselves. Well, I'm upset, and now it's gonna be your problem. I'm gonna make it your problem, and I'm gonna make it your problem in a way that you cannot fix, cannot undo, and cannot seek justice for. That's the kind of rhetoric that Charlie Kirk peddles. That's the kind of rhetoric that Andrew Tate loves to push on men with no self-respect. And that's the real crisis in America. It's not Charlie Kirk. It's not even guns, I would argue. It's the lack of self-respect that a lot of men have, the cowardice, the desire to punch down because they don't see things getting better, because they're too weak to even try. And yet, every one of you is strong enough. This is a decision. This is a choice. Do you want to live in a safer America, one without political violence? Well, that's going to take everyone watching this video and me looking in the mirror and having a long think about who the enemy really is. If they really are that, if they ever really were that, if the reason people act the way they do is because of them, is it because of their environment, is it both? It's recognizing that the world is a complicated and messy place that no one man, not even all of humanity, will ever have a perfect grasp of. If the goal is more free speech, well, we got to live in a world that doesn't just speak, but is also willing to listen. The lesson is not to attack the freedom of anyone, especially their bedrock rights in the Constitution. What you need to do what we all need to do is follow the wisdom of South Park. And we know the shtick by now, right? You say inflammatory stuff, you get a bunch of guys trying to rebut that, doing everything they can, and then they take all the parts that make them look good. That's what Charlie Kirk did. That's who he was. That was his whole career. That's the whole founding and foundation of Turning Point and Daily Wire. He has done work for both. And not giving it any oxygen. Like, if anything, walking up to them and giving them something that they cannot put in a video that makes you look bad or them look good, just to puzzle them in a way, if you're going to engage at all. But the real lid would be to just not feed the trolls. And the both online and offline, there's been too much of that. There's been too much of that. We've been in a slump, a pit of misery. All being pushed by guys like this, who have no self-respect, no sense of shame, and the world just deserves better than that. Everyone deserves better than what Charlie Kirk was pushing for and was advocating for, what Charlie Kirk sought to inflict, and they deserve better than to be the victim of homicide because someone disagrees with them. This is an all-around bad situation, and I'm not going to chill or self-censor. I'm gonna be as loud and as vigilant as I was before, and I encourage you all to do the same. And I also need you to understand that, yeah, you got to think before you speak. If you want to have a message that will stick, you got to have a look in the mirror. If you want to have a life that's worth living, worth enjoying, an America worth defending, um, you have to have the self-respect and self-love from within, and then find people who are willing to help you. Find ways to build for your country. It could be in advocacy groups that are not preaching destruction. It could be a church that's not preaching destruction. You just we in order to come together as a country, we have to actually do that. We have to take the steps to do this, and the first step is having a long look in the mirror and thinking, okay, how can I make that better? How can I make this guy someone I would respect? Because if you're not able to do that, you're just going to be as miserable as Charlie Kirk was. I mean, he preached a lot of stuff, and he had this goofy grin, but it was all an act. It's all a miserable existence. Way more miserable than my own, to be honest with you. And I'm a furry. Like, imagine if Elon Musk actually paid the UN what it would cost to solve world hunger and then joined the furry fandom. That would be more preferable of an existence to the one he is living now. Men should man how they please, and all of the advice I said here applies to all genders or even agender people. You get the point. Right? If you have self-respect, you're gonna turn out a lot better and a lot happier than everyone who voted for Donald Trump and is still defending him now. They look like miserable people because they are miserable people. And how much self-respect is enough? A good start? Well, it's enough to not fall into their tar pit of misery. I know you're all strong enough to get out of it. Yes, even those of you who are paralyzed in wheelchairs, yeah, you're all strong enough for that too. Quadriplegics, you too. I mean, you're all capable of getting out of the tar pit of misery in some way. You need to have enough self-respect to not need some savior on the outside. Not someone to not latch onto someone who is full of hate, like Charlie Kirk was, and like the shooter was. You know? Yeah, I think you know. You need enough self-respect to not be taken advantage of by guys like this, by guys like Stephen Miller, by women like Candace Owens. You need enough self-respect to sit back and do your own thinking. You need enough self-respect to watch cartoons and do fun shit every once in a while. I mean, I was at a furry convention a couple weeks ago. I had a blast. I am absolutely going to go out more. I like bowling. Attend more furry events, make more friends that way, and you don't need to be a furry either. You just got to find people you connect with, and feel free to trade hangouts with one another. One of you likes bowling? Well, both of you try bowling. One of you likes throwing the ball back and forth? Both of you do that. Go to parks, I mean, that's easy to say that in Minnesota, but there's parks in every state, even Missouri has them. New York has them. Get out there and find humanity. Don't let someone like Charlie Kirk define it for you. And definitely don't let mass shooters or murderers of any kind define what humanity is, because they have none. You deserve better than that. Everyone watching this deserves better than that. And as always, subscribe if you like,